with Jamboard 5E style. And one of the things that I love that Dr. Williams said today, actually Dr. Fayal said about Newton County being your team. So I want to extend that offer and say that even going beyond Newton County, we are your team as well. So if you're an educator that's on Twitter or Instagram, please definitely follow me. And then I invite you to be a part of my team as well. So definitely follow, I follow back, and connect with educators outside of your four walls. So here are my 5 things I wanted to share. One, you know how it is. There's been this conflict about who's from Atlanta and who's not, where's Atlanta and all of that. Fine, I'll just say this. I went to school in Hapeville, my first K through 5. I lived in Hapeville, Georgia, which is Fulton County, around there. And then the rest of my academic career, I was in school in DeKalb. And I currently still live in Ellenwood, which is DeKalb. Now, when we're outside of Atlanta and we're outside of Georgia, I say all of this is Atlanta. But when we're at home, I'm from Ellenwood. I'm from DeKalb. I'm not far from 20. I have family in Madison, Georgia. So just wanted to share. Also, you have your superintendent here. I love how Dr. Williams, I said, Dr. Williams, did you look at my presentation before we got started? Because I don't have a video, but Miss Fury was your superintendent. She was my ELA 7th and 8th grade teacher back in the DeKalb days, back in middle school. She was my teacher for 2 years. And while I went the math and science route, I did education because of how much I loved her. And everything that Dr. Williams said about those great teachers and the things they're doing and how they made you feel, that was definitely Miss Fury. So how amazing. Your superintendent was my teacher for 2 years, and she is still just as dynamic today as she was back then. So y'all tell I said hey. And then here is my family. I always believe I'm more than just a presenter. I'm more than an educator. It's oftentimes we want to put it all together. This is my family. I am married. Tomorrow's our 14th year anniversary. I have a preteen. She's going to 7th grade. So please pray for me. You know how it is. And I have a set of twins that are going to the 4th grade. And of course, I have a German Shepherd puppy. I think he's still a puppy, right? He'll be 2 in like September. So he's still a puppy. He's just 80 pounds. So I don't know, maybe he's not a puppy. And then I am your GSTA Vice President. So if you're not a member of GSTA, I highly encourage you to join, because we are a network and a great support system for you. So many things we offer. So please make sure you are a part of our organization. And then what I currently do now, I believe I am a forever educator. Just like I was sharing with Ms. Williams earlier, I started in middle school. I taught all grades in middle school, math and science, but my heart was in physical science because of the math and science conceptual understanding that was there. So that was my baby. But then eventually I transitioned to the district level in Fulton County, supporting K-12 math and science. And then through all of that, I now work for Explore Learning, which is home of Gizmos, Science for Us, Reflex, and Frac. So in my mind, I am always a teacher regardless of the capacity. And if you're into badges, here are a few of them that I have. So those are my 5 things. Enough about me. Let's get started. So as we talk about engaging students with Google Jamboard, let's talk about that word, engage. Have you ever felt this way? I love a good meme, y'all. Like, have you seen this meme? This is kind of old, but it still sticks with my heart. Back when we were doing virtual, have you ever seen this meme? Teachers engaging students online, like they got the feathers on, they got the bells or whistle, they dance, and they doing all of these things. And then this is the student at home. This is how they looking at you. Have you ever felt that way? Well, what does student engagement look like? What does it even look like? So I want you to think about that for a minute. Don't answer just yet, But what does student engagement look like? I'll give you a minute to think about that. And if you have your thought, drop it in the chat. What does student engagement look like to you, Ms. Williams? What does it look like to you, Ms. Lawrence? What does it look like to you, Ms. Wingate? Drop your answers in the chat. Active participation and excitement, actively and showing emotions. Let me screenshot that and give that to my husband, because I literally called him a robot once. I said, can you show me something? Like, what's up? Students actively working, that word, actively, and then not passive. I love that. Yes. So I want you to hold on to your answers. Thank you for that. I asked over 100 educators that same question that I just asked you. And I want you to take a look at some of their answers. We did this through Mentimeter, just to give you a heads up. Through Mentimeter, the word or phrase that was said the most is the biggest word. And look at some of those answers. Did anything stand out to you all?
Participation.
There you go, participation. Jennifer hit that on the nail. All of us did. Anything else? Anything else?
Interaction.
There you go. Participation, interaction, academic discourse. So yes, fine to talk, but we need to be talking about what it is we're talking about. Excitement, listening, so many good ones. I think this was my K-5 teachers that I asked. Look at what my high school teachers said, my secondary, so 6 through 12. These are what they said. Same thing, participation. They want us to ask questions. Well, they want students to ask questions. Question that came up again, focus, attentive. And then this one that I'm about to show you, I did an international session, and I asked some educators who live all over the world. And this is what they said. Participation, having a conversation. So it didn't matter where you came from, what grade band you came from, what grade band you teach, or where in the world you're from, we all have our ideas of what engagement looks like. And of course, these are the big ones. That doesn't mean that they're right. That just means that's what came often. But some of those at the bottom, buy-in, focus. And we just talked about what we noticed, that participation was something that came up often. So now I have some questions for you about engagement. I want you to take a look at a few different pictures and GIFs, and I want you to tell me whether or not, you can answer to yourself or in the chat, is this engagement? Based on our definition, based on how we define it, is this engagement? What about this one? We have some kids who are applying Newton's laws. Then we have this kid here who just got up from what he's supposed to be doing. So is he focused? He left his partner, came over here. Let me go back to Arthur. If you're a fan of Arthur, hey, everyone's kind of standing, but look right here at this guy. Hands folded behind his back. He's just looking. Do we know if he's engaged? And if you watch Arthur, we kind of knew Binky was that his name? I think it was Binky. He was kind of like the problem, but he's standing there, he's not tapping. Is he engaged? And we just saw them. What about this young girl? She's working on her Wednesday weekly assignment. Is she engaged? She's sitting by herself. It looks like she's participating. She's using the features. What about these gentlemen here? Their professor is modeling, lecturing to them, and they're all looking at him. They're not saying anything, but are they engaged? Can we honestly say that they're engaged or not? So why did I show you all of those? Because I want to give you this quick definition about engagement. There is not one means of engagement that will be optimal for all learning. So it doesn't matter what we do. Everything, that one thing is not going to always 100% engage every learner. But providing multiple options for engagement is essential. So yeah, some things are going to engage some students, some things are not. So I say this to say, as we get into Google Jamboard today, this isn't the tool that I'm not promising and saying, oh, this tool is going to get 100% of your students engaged. This is a tool to add to your toolbox. So if it doesn't get all 100% of your students engaged, but it gets 5 of them, you have worked for someone. It worked for someone. So I wanted to put that disclaimer out there and put the definition of what engagement actually is. So now let's get started. Engaging scientists with Jamboard. What are we going to do? We're going to explore Jamboard. So we're going to have some participation. You guys are going to be able to be students and get in there and play with Jamboard. We're going to explain Jamboard. We're going to extend our thinking beyond Jamboard and the things that it can do. And we're going to evaluate our skills with Jamboard. So let's explore. I am going to put a tool. I'm going to put a link in the chat for you in a second. So as we explore, what is Jamboard? This is Google's whiteboard tool made for collaboration. So I believe we talked about that when we talked about engagement, that this is a collaboration tool. You can use Google Jamboard and not be a Google district. You can use Google Jamboard on Canva. So now let's explore Jamboard. Here we are. I'm going to put a link in the chat for you. And I want you to just have a good time. Go for it. Even if you've never used Jamboard before, even if you've never even touched it, you don't know what it is, that's part of it.
I went to the lobby.
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine. You mind
I don't
muting
see
for
the
me?
link.
There we go. All right.
There we go.
In the chat, I have a Jamboard for you. I want you to go inside of there and explore. Your screen should look exactly like mine. All right, I see some people in there. You have 6 pages at the top. Knock yourself out. I'm gonna give us about 2 minutes to do that, to just explore and touch things. Do exactly how you think your students would do. Imagine if you just gave this link to 100 kids and said, boom, go. And what do you think would happen? Sure, resending the link for you. Link is in the chat.
That's cool. Actually, I like that.
Let me go in here and act up. Uh-oh. Somebody hid my directions. Oh, Lord. Did someone delete? Oh my goodness. Ooh. Did you know there was a shortage in olives? The pimento stuff, to be honest. And they said, and I looked up an article, they said because of climate change. And I said, if I said, all right now, not my olives, I eat them out of a jar.
So do I. I just had some.
Really?
favorite.
See, they're so delicious. I love the pimento stuff.
The almond stuffed ones are even better.
Are they? I have to try those.
Yeah.
All right. I love olives, green and see. Not a fan of olives at all. That is quite all right. See, people always get upset when someone doesn't like something they like. And I always say, that's okay. That means if you get olives and you don't want them, you give them to me. So it's a win-win. So if you see olives and a pimento stuff, just give them to me. I'll eat them with a smile. Prefer black olives. You can have mine. Awesome. So I would like to say, oh, that's it. That's the session, everybody. Good day. But no, that's not quite it. I wanted you to get your feet wet. I wanted you to get a chance to just touch and feel and see some of the things. And actually, let's see. What are some things that you noticed? What are some things that you tried? Let's see. I see some of us figured out how to change the background right here. And you can upload a background, Google search. So maybe you want your background to be a periodic table.
This is so tiny.
What if that was your background? Ooh, I can see science heads going already. What if that was your background? And what if I don't want anything else on there anymore? I can clear the frame. So many things you can do. Add pictures, sticky notes. So much you can do. But let's talk for a moment. So you had a chance to play with Jamboard. So let me draw your attention back. I don't know about you, but imagine if I just let like what we just did. Imagine if I just allowed 60 different kids to get on Jamboard just like that link. Do you feel some type of anxiety about experiencing that? Or think of it that way. 60 kids, I didn't give you any directions. I just said, get on there and go. Can you imagine the types of things that could possibly happen? And for some people, it wouldn't bother you. Hey, it's a learning experience. For me, someone erasing my directions, someone erasing someone else's work, it's going to cause me some, So let's talk about that. Let's explain that for a moment. When you're working with Google Jamboard, just like any other tool, just like in your classroom, set expectations first of what you want them to do, how you want them to use Jamboard. So I always believe, set the stage first. And it's up to you how you set the stage when it comes to Google Jamboard. You can be upfront with them and say, these are the things I want you to do. These are the rules. This is how we're going to use Jamboard. Do this. Please don't do that. It could be collaboration. Okay, everyone, we've just experienced Jamboard together. What are some ground rules we should all consider as we're using Jamboard as a class? Or you can just do what I just did and give you the link and say, hey, figure it out. What do you think is going to happen? So it's up to you, but I encourage you, whatever your style is, because neither one are right or wrong, it's up to you. Whatever your style is, set the expectation. And one way that I like to do that, and I'll have a copy for everyone, is called the Jamboard Practice for Students. Let me go back to it so you can see it. And I'll give you a forced copy. So this is your own copy. So that means no one is on it but you. This is yours, but I want you to see what it looks like. Oh, it's loading. Yay, come on and load. There we are. This is a set the expectations of Jamboard, giving your students a chance to do everything I just asked you to do, but they get to do it on their own. Here are the expectations: respect, don't delete or remove student or teacher work, no scribbling. This is giving them a chance to practice using all of the different modalities of writing and using their color choices. So this gives them a chance to practice writing. This gives them a chance to practice typing. So if this is a quick little homework assignment or maybe a quick warm-up before you use the Jamboard, giving them a chance to actually practice, make their mistakes. Showing them how to draw their shapes and all of those things. Showing them how to use the sticky notes, how to edit, how to make a copy, how to delete, all of those little basic tools and the basic features they need to know. We don't want them to figure it out in the middle of our assignment. We want them to already know, but we have to have given them an opportunity to practice. How to upload a picture, how to clear frames. So these are just some ideas and ways to give your students a chance to actually practice using Jamboard. And I just dropped in the link, your personal copy. You can put your own directions in there. You can delete it, whatever you do, it will not affect my version or anyone else's version. So this is for you to have, and I highly encourage you to have something in place for your students. And I always like to give credit to the person who created this. If you're not on Facebook, we have a Google Jamboard group on Facebook, and Patty Jean, she is so creative. Like, she knows how to make things so visually appealing, and she gives away these things for free. So I always like to give credit. So that's great and all, but how do I use Jamboard in science? Because that's why I'm here. I've heard of Jamboard. I might have seen it, but how do I use it in science? So what I'm going to show you are a couple of different Jamboards that I've created and how we've used them in science. And if it's something that you're interested in having your own copy of, just let me know and I will send you a copy. Not a problem. This particular Jamboard is called, Is It a Model? Drop in the chat for me. Do you have the resource Uncovering Student Ideas by Paige Keeley? Have you seen that resource? It looks like this. Have y'all seen this in your toolbox? This is definitely something. Yes, this is definitely an amazing tool, because the way Uncovering Student Ideas works is you start off with these little prompts, simple little prompts about every topic, any topic that you're pretty much covering, and you give them for students to identify their thinking. You get to see what they're thinking. You get to see what misconceptions they have. But one of my favorite versions, one of my favorites is called, Is It a Model? Because in our standards, we see model, 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 model. But have we actually determined or defined what a model actually is? I love doing this particular one. So twofold. I'll let you play with it for a moment. Actually, go ahead and play with it. Here it is in the chat. Now let's explain what it looks like. And you can move any of these around. So what you'll do, you'll have a card sort. And that's one thing you can do with Jamboard, as I'm showing you. Notice my background, you can't touch it. So if I'm making a graphic organizer, is it a model? Is it not a model? I'm not sure. Students can pick something up just like this. Watching a live video of a volcano. Is it a model? Not a model? I'm not sure. You can drop it there. Everyone pick up one card and you place it where you think it should go.
Oh, that's cool.
All right. after you have placed your items, this is a whole nother PD within itself. But the way we define a model is a replica of the real thing. So you have to ask yourself as you're picking up something, am I looking at the actual thing? Am I manipulating the real thing or a replica of it? One of my favorites, develop a mathematical equation to solve a science problem. If I'm defining speed, distance over time, this is a model. Mathematical equations are models. Forming a mental image of molecules in the liquid state. I actually argued with the author about this. When I tell you Paige Keeley, she was the president of NSTA, but she was so amazing to me because I just didn't understand. What do you mean form a mental image? You can't see what I see. And she says, that's not how I define, that's not what a model is. It's not about what you see. It's about a replica of the real thing. So a mental image is also a model. What about dissecting a cow bone? Is that a model or not a model? Not a model, because that's the real thing. So a few things I want you to get out of this experience. 1, card sorts. 2, define what an actual model is, because models are up and down our science standards, and we have our own misconceptions of what models are, but we need to make sure that we're all on the same page. So, like I said, one of my favorites, and I'll actually give you the original document of what it looks like. So we went from it looking like this is the original document. And I'll put that in a PDF for you as well. I mean, not PDF, the chat, if it'll open for you. We went from looking like this worksheet to Jamboard. Can you see how the difference in engagement has changed and how it saves you paper? And of course, the explanation, everything you need is here for elementary, middle, and high. All of the probes that she has looks like this, but I like to change them into Jamboards for several reasons. So I just wanted you to see that one. That's one of our other Jamboards. Let's see another one. This one is called roller coaster. Anybody like riding roller coasters? What is the scariest roller coaster you've ever rode? Like, drop it in the chat or unmute. What's the scariest roller coaster you've ever rode? I don't blame you, Michael. The scariest, and don't say someone's gonna say the ninja at Six Flags. That one is kind of scary. It gives you a headache. I've learned the older I get. Oh yes, Tower of Terror. Yes, it is scary. Those drops. Then you're looking at a ghost and you're paying attention to that, and next thing you know, you're falling. Yes, you're right, Jennifer. That one is scary. If you ever go to Universal Studios Islands of Adventure, I want you to get on this ride. If you love roller coasters, Velocicoaster is at the Jurassic Park and the Velociraptors. I think I said that right. That roller coaster is by far one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life. So as I'm talking to you about roller coasters, as I'm modeling for you, as you're talking to students to see who likes roller coasters and who doesn't, what's your favorite? This is to get some of them who might be afraid of roller coasters. Well, let's talk about how roller coasters actually work. Okay. So this particular, excuse me. So this particular Jamboard is a good assessment for students to determine where's the highest potential and where's the highest kinetic energy. This could be a simple warm-up. This could be a simple ticket out the door. This could be a way for you to identify misconceptions. If someone says the potential energy is here, or someone believes the highest kinetic energy is here. This is just a good way to assess learning. And you can make as many copies as you need. All right. Any questions so far? All right. Let's see the next one. Anybody have a, well, y'all just saw my dog. All right, let's go back to the next one. Anybody teaching water cycle? Anybody teaching water cycle? Let's check this one out. All right. For water cycle, I like this one because it gives students a chance to determine for themselves what is the most important part of the water cycle. Is it evaporation, condensation, precipitation? They get to determine, they get to form a claim to determine what's the most important part. Students can get a sticky note and place their answers there. So what you're doing is, one, collecting votes. And then after that, you're grouping them. So all the students that said condensation is the most important part of the water cycle, go ahead and provide your evidence here. And then start with your sentence frames if you have to. I believe, evaporation, and so forth. Can you think of other science concepts we have that involve multiple parts to a cycle? Can you think of any other ones that you possibly could use for something similar to this? Maybe the rock cycle, right? Or moon phases. Well, which is your favorite moon phase? Or what's happening during this phase of the moon? So just getting students to interact and giving them visuals. And then also to drive that ELA part, create your own water droplet story. This is such a cute little idea. You have a water droplet, and one of the misconceptions that we have sometimes in our textbooks is that the water cycle always starts here, or it's gonna always end here. What if this water droplet cycle story started right here? What's happening there? He moves or he goes up. What happens? And give students a chance to, one, write their story, accurately use the terms, and the next thing, identify misconceptions, assessing their learning. I love this. And if you have other ideas, feel free to drop them. Absolutely. You definitely can use that. Here's another one. If you haven't figured out one thing about me, I love a card sort. I love card sorts. And it doesn't matter what content you teach, you definitely can use a card sort. So what I have for you are teacher notes. Create a story for this graph. I always believe a graph tells a story. Allow students to tell a story looking at the graph. This is from home, this is time. What's actually happening from here to here? I'm walking at blah, blah, meters per second. And then what happened? I saw a dog and it was chasing me, and boom, what happened? Oh my goodness, I left my book bag at home. I gotta go back and get it. Down. You're assessing, one, their interpretation of graphs, their ability to analyze data just from telling a story. And what if they recorded their story on Flipgrid? What if they made you a quick TikTok with music in the background, analyzing a graph? You're engaging them and you're able to assess their learning. And again, I love a card sort. This is a lot at once, but when you have your version, take some of these off. What you do, you match the time graph to the interpretation to the data table. And no, this is not correct. You can give them all of them, or you can give them a few of them. What if this was a station for you? What if this was a station rotation for your students? If you're teaching physical science, I can see your heads like, yes, they struggle. Some of mine struggled with this. And then here's the part 2 version of it. I like this. Here's a graph. Make up your own story. And here's some additional things. Journey to the bus stop, where students can actually mark their graphs. They can analyze their data, they can play with it, and then they can describe to you what happened. So as you're seeing, each Jamboard can be its own activity. Each frame can be its own activity. What do you think so far? Can you see yourselves using something like this in your science classrooms? Even if it's not physical science, we have several other standards. And then check this one out. If you teach 5th grade, I think I heard some 5th grade teachers in here. One of the things that I also like to do, name my Jamboard after the standard and element so that I'm not looking for, so yeah, I know the topic, but if I need something for a specific standard, I name it that. So before we get started, this one is actually aligned to PhET simulation. If you've used the circuit PhET simulation, and if you haven't, you'll see it in my Nearpod session in a few minutes. Which items made the light bulb light? And I like to put the name of, if this is a group assignment, I like to put the name of the group or put the student's name there. These are the items that made the light bulb light. Here. Here's some that did not make the light bulb light. And what I would have them do, screenshot the circuit you made, showing me that you did this investigation. So they can screenshot and they can add their images here as proof that you did what I asked you to do. And here's Shaylin's activity. So if I'm doing a small group or I'm doing stations, when you created your circuit, did this item make the light bulb glow? Yes, no, and so forth. So you can make individual sheets. Blade is my dog, y'all. And then last but certainly not least, you have claims, evidence, reasoning, card sort. We're using CER. It's all in our standards, it's in our practices, but sometimes getting them started, giving them a chance to actually practice. So directions, sort the cards to identify which claim, evidence goes together. Which question, claim, evidence go together. And sometimes what isn't needed? This is on topic, but I don't need this as evidence. So my shadow is shorter in the afternoon. How can human changes harm the environment? We know that's a question. Does my shadow change the length? If we do not pick up our garbage. So you get to sort all of your cards out to determine which goes where. These are my questions. Now, which could be my claims? Which could be my evidence? And then what information isn't needed? So this is a good way to gradually get your students into claims, evidence, reasoning. And notice again, other than just these parts here, the background doesn't change. And if something does change, version history is your friend. Always go back to the beginning, not a problem. And then just having different backgrounds. So let's see. Was there one that stood out to you so far? Was there one particular Jamboard that really stood out to you, or one idea that stood out to you for science? Okay. Okay. Awesome, awesome. So again, we went through each of those particular card sorts and just making sure that we understand why. Using Jamboards as an alternative assessment, everything isn't going to be paper pencil, which saves you time. Water cycle, and I talked about what those are, why we use it this way. Students being able to defend their answers. So we talked about what each of these were and how we can use them. So let's talk about the 3 instructional strategies for Jamboard. So I've given you some actual content, aligned Jamboard to science content, gave you some ways to get started with Jamboard with your students. So let's talk about some instructional strategies that we can use. It's all about how you share Jamboard. When you're using Jamboard, you can share it 3 different ways. Now, this is through Google Classroom, and you don't use Google Classroom anymore. You're using Canva. So what's going to be important is making sure when you share your link through Canva that you know exactly how you're sharing it. So it's going to be a little different, but not a problem. Students can view the file, students can edit a file, or you can make a copy of the Jamboard for each student, just like I did for you earlier. And I actually show you a quick trick on how to do that. When students are viewing the file, this is what the teacher is doing. They're the ones manipulating the Jamboard. They're the ones using this as a demo. And you can use this if you're pre-recording lessons to show Jamboard. What students can't do when students are just viewing the file, they can't make any changes to the Jamboard. The intent is for them just to watch. So if you have your settings as view for the students to view, this is what you'll be able to do, and this is what they'll be able to do. So if they're telling you, I can't move anything, I can't touch it, you may have your settings on view. Students can edit a file. With this, the teacher can manipulate the Jamboard. Now, if I have 60 kids on there, I can tell who was there, but I can't necessarily tell who did it. So making sure you're putting those Jamboard expectations up front with them, because accidents will happen. Someone might accidentally say a bad word, and of course you'll be able to say, no, I know who did it. But in reality, you may not know who did it. But setting those expectations up front so that you're not in those situations is going to be key. And always remember, you can restore back to your original. So you don't have to keep making several copies. You can always go back. You can save the PDF of what you currently have and restore back to your version. Students can manipulate the Jamboard. They can delete. They, for the most part, have the same rights as the teacher. You can make a copy for each student. What that does is give them individual Jamboards. They have their own individual sheet. They can't see. It takes away the collaboration. So they won't be able to see anybody else's work but their own. So think of this as their own individual practice sheet. And you can make as many copies as you need to. So let's talk about extending our Jamboard. Let's talk about extending Jamboard. A few things you need to know about Jamboard. A few helpful tips. You have 20 slides per Jamboard. 50 collaborators can be on at once. So if you have a class of 50, just know that 51st student may not be able to get on. And the more they get on, the slower it may use. I have not had that experience, but I've seen other educators say, when I've had 50, it was a little slow. You can create Jamboards in your Google Drive folder. If you're still having your Google Drive folder, keep them in there. Remember, version history is your friend. You can always restore back to your original version. Name your Jamboards after your standards and or class periods. If you have several different preps that you have to get in or that you teach, name your Jamboards after the standards or perhaps even the class period. Some fancy tips. Jamboard starts off as just a whiteboard, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can create your Jamboard backgrounds using Google Slides, or you can go to Canvas. I know you have some sessions going on now, so think of how you can create Google Jamboard backgrounds in Canvas. And use some cool fonts. You don't have to use what's there. Go ahead and use some of the cool fonts, and you can go to font generator, cooltext.com, and you can get some really cool fonts from there. So as we evaluate, you have templates already ready to go on Google. There's some that are beyond even just specifically science. There are Venn diagrams out there. There's some things that are already out there ready for you to go. Simply Google Jamboard templates, and even in Canvas, everyone, they have templates already in there. And I invite you, create your own Jamboard. It is definitely something you're going to love.